Star Wars has had such a huge history with Skywalker sound. There's so much that's come before, but this is 30 years after the events of Return of the Jedi, so we have a lot more latitude to create new things that haven't been heard before. We're not stuck in an era that's already occurred.
You want to hear Chewbacca growl talk. You want to hear the roar of the TIE fighter flying by, the sound of a lightsaber. Those iconic sounds are as much a reason to do another Star Wars movie as anything.
It's a huge sound design job. They're coming up with all sorts of sounds and letting us go back to the sounds that we knew before. They're inventing things, looking for ways in which we can push technology. And what better way to do that than inside the Star Wars universe? There's so much opportunity.
We were very lucky to get to work with people like Ben Burtt, who is the godfather of Star Wars sound. We also are very lucky to have Gary Rydstrom and Matt Woods, some amazing people doing incredible work.
You want it to sound like Star Wars, yet we want to apply it to the soundstage of 2015. I went out to the set pretty early. J.J. gave us a pitch for the movie, so we really felt included as a sound team really early on.
It looked amazing. Well, it looked like Star Wars, first of all, which is a good thing, but it was exciting, the possibilities that it opened up.
It's such a great thing to build around and build within and find moments to feature the music, and then there's a dip in the music and then a sound effect happens. So much of Star Wars is about that. The film is kind of telling you what needs to happen. There's times when the motion's a lot faster in some of the action sequences than they were in the originals. We have to adapt for that. Obviously working with JJ and where he wants it to keep this legacy going forward.
When we were either developing a new sound for a creature or a droid, I know JJ would say a lot, when I close my eyes, if that character was standing on the other side of the door speaking, I would know that was that character. BB-8 was one of the early sounds we had to develop because it was going to be so iconic for the movie, and that was a pure JJ character, BB-8. He was very motivated to find something original. So we went through a lot of permutations with that. The first iteration of BB-8, he had actor Ben Schwartz come in and fill in where BB-8 would speak.
Thank you? What do you mean goodbye? No, right, I have to stay here, I can't just leave.
That gave us a nice clear path of conveying emotion and where he was supposed to speak. These guys both came up with ideas that had a talk box with a tactile interface. So we had Bill Hader come in. We sat with Bill and recorded with JJ controlling the synthesizer, which you really liked because it was almost like a performance tool, which gave us a huge library of material.
Obviously, the droid voice was a big part of his character, but the other big part was his motors.
BB-8's motors were created by Ben Burtt and Gary Rydstrom, crafted to have that emotional quality so that BB-8 wasn't actually speaking.
Creatures have always been such a huge part of the Star Wars universe, and all the films that have come before have had their share of various aliens and creatures and environments. And in this particular film, we've got Tito, we've got Eloasti.
The entire Maz's bar.
The pressure's high to make something interesting, and if we use the pathway that Ben Burtt had created, there are a lot of very original creatures and ships and weapons that he had made over the years. We tried to use that as a guide to kind of just try something a little weird. Star Wars was never perfect. It had little mistakes and oddness in it that made it original.
To that end, when the Rathtar jumps on the cockpit of the Falcon, he's choking on the cockpit, basically. And that's just me choking.
Nice.
Putting my finger down my throat and recording that. Kylo Ren's saber is a pretty iconic sound. It's kind of raw. It sounds unstable the way Kylo is. It was a lot of trial and error using a massive library of sounds that we created. It doesn't have the refined sound that Luke's saber has.
I'll show you the dark side.
J.J. had these ideas that he wanted Kylo Ren's mask to sound like a chainsaw mixed with a Harley Davidson with like a flamethrower to give this compressed, distorted feel for him.
I've been waiting for this day for a long time.
Because the mask was not to function like Vader's mask to keep him alive. Kylo Ren's mask is purely for intimidation.
I will finish what you started.
The Starkiller weapon itself had to be bigger than the Death Star firing. You get the wave through the trees when you come back to the planet, and then it kind of goes into music after that. It gets a little dreamy.
As we're mixing, you literally can have 1,000 tracks, and it doesn't necessarily make it better. What is that perfect balance? Because you've got this amazing music that John Williams has written. The dance of music versus sound effects, how do they coexist?
It's a real emotional moment. The trick was finding a way to transition out of the most violent thing ever into this really emotional score that John Williams had put together.
These incredible sound effects are as important as anything. What Skywalker has done and continues to do on this movie is so remarkable. I'm only grateful for the chance to get to work with them and the incredible work being done. They are an extraordinary team of artists.